Well, welcome to another episode of our podcast session. Today's topic is building a legacy, Black excellence in construction, to tribute to Black History Month. And my name is Yomi Adeyemo. I'm the community engagement manager here at Juneau Construction. I've been with Juneau for about 10 years now, and it's been great. I oversee supplier diversity, and part of what I do is just bring in awareness to minority and disadvantaged businesses and providing tools and resources to build their businesses up. Alongside of me is Cierra Danforth. She's a project engineer here at Juneau Construction, so she'll be co-hosting. And then we have two lovely guests here today. We have Channing Baker, and then we have Tagget Williams, both Black-owned business owners, right? And they'll introduce themselves more on their company and how they've gotten involved in the construction industry. But I believe that experiences paint a good perspective while people have discussions. So I'll start off with just giving a little bit background of how I got into the industry, and then Sierra, you could go ahead, and then we'll let you all hear from our two guests. So how I got into the industry, well, no one really in my family was into construction. I think I had one aunt. She was an architect, but all the way in Nigeria. And so I always knew that I wanted to be in the construction engineering space. I think, when I was in first grade, I drew out a picture of me wearing a hard hat that said architect. And so I knew that definitely I wanted to do something that had like some kind of building concept. So I started out as a civil engineering major, and then later on switched to construction management and did an intern with Juneau Construction my last year in college, and then they brought me to full time. So and definitely shout out to my uncle, because he's the one that kind of exposed me into construction. He's an architect, but he told me about construction management. I did research, and that's why I changed my major. So I really owe him pretty much everything, because he's the one that kind of gave me the insight with construction management. So that's how I got involved. How about you, Sierra?
Similar to you, Yami, I was telling Channing and Taggett before we started rolling kind of my journey. But I kind of got interested in, I was more so growing up interested in like architecture, and I used to watch HGTV all the time with my dad. So I just loved that aspect of things, like looking at a floor plan and then coming to life as like a building, right? Like something that's actually real and tangible. So yeah, I wanted to be an architect. And also too, like my grandfather was a huge like inspiration to me for that, because he wanted to be an architect. But back in the 40s and 50s, that was kind of unheard of for like a black man to be an architect. And basically he was told he couldn't. So he was a brick mason. And I also remember just too when he used to take me and my sister home from school, on the way home, like the houses that he helped build, he used to just tell us like, I laid every brick, on that house. And it's crazy because we're talking, that was like 50 years ago at this time. And it's like, still he remembers that. And that's like a story he can share with me and my sister, and like, you know, his other grandkids and his kids. I was like, wow, I really want to be a part of something like that that lasts, even after I'm going, and my kids can say, oh, your mom, like my mom did that, or my grandkids can say that. So that's what got me into that. So I went to school for architecture. It didn't work out, and it was really a heavy factor that kind of weighed on my heart, because I really didn't want to change my major, because I felt like I was somehow letting my grandfather down, even though he wasn't here at the time, like physically, like he passed away. I just felt like, gosh, now I can't achieve the dream that he couldn't achieve. But deep down, I knew what I had to do was right for me, and I fell in love with construction management. And I interned throughout school at a smaller GC, and straight out of school, I started working at Juneau, and I've been here for 2 years now, almost. And I'm a project engineer, and my current project is the National Center for Civil and Human Rights. So I'm super excited to get that started, and especially like I feel like that's something for the culture, and I feel like that's something that's gonna really leave a big impact in the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one thing I like is, and this is another reason why I chose construction, is like there's a tangible reward. You know, you get to see a building that you were a part of for many years, just like your grandfather, right? So I think that's one of the things that stood out to me. But let's start with you, Shannon. You know, you can tell us a little bit about your company, how you got started, and then how you got into construction, right?
Sure. First off, I want to take this opportunity to thank you guys for putting this together. I've been in construction. Literally the only occupation I really kind of know. I started as a laborer when I was working for my dad's business when I was in middle school and high school. Both of them probably illegal opportunities when it comes to safety. OSHA was not there. He had retired by that time, but he had a residential construction company at that point in time. But my dad is 84 now, so he was on his third tier of life when he had me. He had me at 40, right? So I think it's 40 or 42, right? So he lived life 3 times. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys really for having this opportunity because you don't have to do it. It's not like someone probably pressed you, and I think that I feel like you guys are natural at this. The voices, they got radio voices for sure. A little intimidating. It's definitely a little intimidating, but so yeah, so the name of the company is Evolve Contractors, and I named it Evolve specifically because me being a 4th generation construction professional in my family, there really hadn't been the type of evolution that you would want to have in other different communities, right? As it relates to passing on the buck or passing on knowledge, passing on value, passing on equity, right? So I wanted to name the company Evolve just to keep it in front of my mind on a regular basis. We are a commercial roofing firm, but we also are a commercial general contractor and construction manager. So we joint venture with firms, but we also obviously add value by self-performing commercial roofing, and that would be PVC roofs, bit, build up, green, TPO. And we also fabricate and install. We're a certified metal panel installer. We don't do massive projects, but we do commercial, and also we do some above ground waterproofing. So that's the company. I'm was born in Los Angeles. Dad is from Tuskegee. Lived in Chicago some, but I've been in Atlanta since '98. And I went to anybody that listens to this, they hear the names like North Atlanta High School, graduate, right? Morehouse, applied physics, graduate, civil engineering, Georgia Tech, graduate. So I've been here. I'm from Atlanta, right? I guess is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right. Well, my story is a little different from all 3 of y'all. Y'all actually came into construction. my story, I came in. I went to school at the University of Alabama and did electrical engineering. That's my degree. When I left University of Alabama, I went into telecom. So I worked for U.S. Quest. I worked for Sprint and their telecom division. Then years later, I started my own little small courier service. I don't know if y'all know a company called Zoe's Kitchen. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Zoe's Kitchen, I had a contract with Zoe's Kitchen for all their deliveries in the state of Georgia. And the point was we was going to branch out and go to Florida and do all the Southeast. But what happened is the COVID hit. So that killed the business. So when it killed the business, I left and went back home to Alabama. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, so I went back to Huntsville, Alabama. And I stayed with my mother for about a year. But during that year, I worked with my friend's mother, who has like a small renovation company, but she also have a final cleaning company. So when I came in, I became the project manager over her final cleaning company, and I enjoyed it. I knew I was coming back to Atlanta, so once I started doing that, when I came back to Atlanta, I started my own final cleaning company, which is Konservis. Started with a K. The reason why I named it Konservis, the C was already taken. It's short for construction services. So I came back, started my own company, and took off from there. The company been up and running for about 2.5 years now. My current project right now with Juneau is actually the Emory graduate housing project that I have with them right now.
That's awesome. So in terms of like how you all came into the industry, right? So you, Channing, I mean, your dad, it seemed like it runs in the family, right? But at the end of the day, you had a choice, right? So what made you want to stick into the construction?
Yeah, nah, sticking is definitely. Listen, I ain't that smart, bro. So let me start right there. I'm not the sharpest tool in the box. So when I was in college and high school, I just had a challenge with reading and understanding stuff. So when I was at Morehouse, I had to read the books like 2-3 times. When I was at Georgia Tech, I had to read a lot, and study a whole lot. And you can't. And then it was a little harder to make friends at Georgia Tech. Obviously, Morehouse is a very community-oriented school. At Georgia Tech, everybody's kind of just like, they putting their arm up when you see them in the classroom, and they moving the seats. So that's how it was when I was there. So it was tough for me, but there was a point when I was at Morehouse when I was like, man, I don't think I want to do this anymore. Applied physics is extremely difficult. At least I thought it was. Called my dad. He talked to me about it. And, the conversation he gave me was just about quitting. It's like have a better reason than just, I can't handle it. Just anything besides, I just can't handle it. Because the thing about it is you probably haven't extended yourself enough to know that you can. And the fact of the matter is that I did, right? So, I mean, it took a lot. And I had a full-time job when I was in college. I had a full-time job when I was at Morehouse and Georgia Tech. I was selling newspaper subscriptions door to door in Kennesaw for the AJC. So in doing that work and always working and always grinding, I kind of just never had a chance to just stop. Because if I stopped, I was stopping everything. So once I got momentum, I kind of just maintained and just went with it. So that was the point in which I could remember where it came up, where I was like, okay, maybe I should do something else. And when your dad has such a big, he puts such a major emphasis on family and knowing about your history. I mean, I got pictures of my father, my grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, my great-great-great-grandfather, everywhere in my house, both sides. I mean, we were big on that. We were good pictures, So that was how I was raised, and that's kind of the energy that he raised me in. So it was hard. It would have been hard for me to quit. I'm telling you something. I probably wouldn't have been able to come home. I'm gonna be honest with you. He would accept me if I came home. Like if I had gotten kicked out of school, he wouldn't accepted me if I had quit school. So I knew that.
Yeah. Now that's awesome. Something that you said stuck out to me, like as far as just not quitting, right, when things get hard. And I think that's a mindset that a lot of individuals don't have. And I mean, we're talking about just in general, but obviously, we're talking in business, right, as well, too. And just the concept that just because things don't go as smooth, doesn't mean that it's not where you need to go, right? It's not always a smooth path. So just because things get challenging doesn't mean that, you should just quit, right? And I try to remind myself, again, transparency. I'm not a runner, but I like to challenge myself when it comes to cardio and running. And right now I'm trying to gear up to do another 10K. I haven't done a 10K in 3 years, but I'm trying to build back my endurance. And yesterday I was running, and I mean, it was like a 50-minute tread class, and I could feel myself like, oh gosh, I want to give up. But I just had to remind myself why I was doing it right. And, you indicated, why you named your company Evolve, right? And I think when we stick to the reason, stick to the purpose that we're doing something, it's harder for us to quit, right? And obviously you had a lot of reasons other than your dad, wanting to get you if you thought you were about to quit on him.
They changed the locks, brother.
Oh, yeah.
Locks would have been changed. Let me tell you something. Dad's old school. The locks would have been changed.
Oh, yeah. So I just think that, it's just a good mindset to have in everything that you do, whether it's creating a business or just going to school, getting an education, getting a certification, or going to the workforce, whatever status, you're in, just remember that concept. But how about you, Tagget? Like, what? I know you got you said electrical degree. Okay. So what made you go into? Because I mean that's part of the AEC, right? So what made you go into that field?
Oh man, electrical engineering. When I was growing up as a child, I used to take the little small boxes, boom boxes. I used to take the backs off of them, and I loved looking at the circuitry to see how they work. So when I was in the 7th grade, we had some small computers, and I told the teacher exactly what I liked, like the circuitry, and she mentioned electrical engineering. So I was able to pull that information up, what the description of electrical engineering. And then also with that, I was able to pull up the schools. And I was a big Syracuse fan at the time, so I wanted to go to Syracuse. But that's how I found out about electrical engineering. So, and from the 7th grade, I knew that I was going to be an electrical engineer.
See, man, shout out to teachers who like really understand, your strengths and really understand the student, because they're the ones that really, are, pushing these students into the different paths, right? And in your experience, you showed your teacher what you're passionate about. She was able to direct you, and then boom, you went into the electrical. You got your electrical degree. So obviously, we're gonna talk about that later on. But it's important, for teachers to be a part of, just a pathway for us, and just in general speaking, for people going into the construction or engineering industry as well too.
Because I know go ahead.
I was gonna hit on that too, because I had a teacher in middle school that inspired me to go into architecture too, because I remember it was geometry, and we had this one project we had to do, and we had to create like a 3D model of like a house, but like you had to use just like supplies or whatever. It wasn't on the computer. It was like you had to just build it yourself. And so from there, I showed her my project, and she realized, like, oh, you are passionate about architecture. And so we had this school in Augusta for engineering and health science, and it was called Air Johnson, and it's a magnet school. So you had to take a test to apply and do an interview. She told me, she was like, you need to go there, and so that kind of really inspired me to kind of take architecture seriously. And I'm like, I know if I want to get better and get more prepared for school, like college, then I need to go to that school. And that's what I did. And so, yeah, I love teachers. They're amazing. They really shape your life.
You're going to say something?
No, I was just saying to that point,
Yeah.
everybody's got a good story and a bad story, because we all remember great teachers, and we all remember the others.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Great stories. But the ones that affect you the most was, sometimes the one that affects you. I had a teacher tell me one time that I was never going to be anything. And that motivated me. Like, so I'm one of those kids. When I was in school, I needed to hear that. When they told me I wasn't gonna be nothing, the teacher, she was like, you're never gonna be successful. You're gonna be a class clown. You're gonna be laughing. You're gonna be broke, and nothing good is gonna happen to you in life. Like, she told me that. And it's like, how do you tell a kid that? But maybe that's what I needed to hear, because I got my act together. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
So to that point, teachers, we gotta love them.
That's awesome. Thanks, Sierra. You got some questions, Zach?
Yeah. So, just kind of coming up and starting your own businesses, like kind of what resources, if you had any, did you guys utilize to help you get started?
Sure. The first one that I did is the first resource, right, is YouTube. I recognize that there's a lot of free education out there. And, the first thing that I utilized was my friends, people that I knew that were super successful, people that I knew that already had achieved their accomplishments and dreams. They're my age, but they're eons beyond. I sat them down and asked them some questions, and they gave me some good insight. And then after that, it became education, right? It became a lot of YouTube and a lot of books. I subscribed to this book or this app called Headway. Headway like summarizes books for you quickly, so you get the gist of them, like Traction or 4-Hour Work Week, stuff like that. And then after that would be the actual resources, which would be the biggest resources would be the Russell Center, or the Russell Innovation Center for Entrepreneurs. And I'm sure you guys know the story about H.J. Russell, but a quick snippet of his deal is he came up in the 30s and the 40s. And you talk about opportunities not being available. I mean, they really weren't available in a city like Atlanta back then. He started as a laborer, actually as I believe as a drywaller, a finisher, and got into some other trades. But he grew his business to be $100 million national, business. I think at one point in time, he's the biggest minority-owned contractor in the United States. And I'm not sure if it was before he passed or right around that time, there was a 501c3 that was created to help Black businesses grow. And what does that look like? It looks like getting them access to the right types of education, loans, how to understand how to fill out paperwork for loans, how to understand, I'm talking about business loans, right? I mean, those are the kind of resources that really help my business grow. Because if you don't understand how capital moves and how to gain access to capital, then it's going to be harder than it needs to be, right? Other resources like, marketing, right? The relationships and the strategic relationships that the Russell Center has for Black businesses is unlike anything I've ever seen before. Sort of like going to a college, and everybody is there is committed and dedicated to seeing your business grow versus you grow as a person or to get a degree. So I would say the Russell Center is definitely the biggest resource that I would say has helped my business grow, and I've been a member there since 2018.
Okay. And how did you hear about the Russell Center?
Oh, funny story. I used to work for GC in Atlanta, and they actually bid the project. I ended up becoming the project manager on that project. But actually, I bid it, and then I did the takeoffs, the contracts, the engineering, and then I bought it out when we won it, and then I managed it. And then when I managed it, I got to know everybody in the building, and it was very small at that point. It was like 3 people in the building, like 2 people in the building. Now there's like 50 or something like that, as far as staff goes. But I got to know everyone in the building, and they got to know me. And it's funny, they thought I was the owner of the business the whole time. When they found out that I worked for somebody, they were like, "Really?" It was like, "Okay, that's different. Why is that the case? Because you do everything apparently." Yeah. So I would definitely say the Russell Center major. Anybody that's listening to this, I would definitely say that you want to at least get some more information.
For sure. And I like the fact that, you said ask questions, right? And I don't think a lot of times we do enough of asking questions. Now, someone could say, well, how do you know what question to ask if you don't know, But, I mean, it's asking, right, like what you should know. And then from there, you could do the research, right? I mean, you mentioned having asking friends who are successful in their business, right? So that's, one way to go about it. Obviously, YouTube University, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. That's how I learn a lot of stuff, man. I haven't learned how to tie a tie from YouTube. So I mean,
right?
There's so many things that you can learn from YouTube because everyone has a different learning style, right? And for me, it's visual, so that's why I like YouTube. But at the end of the day, like you really got to do your research. I think a lot of times when people want to start a business, they don't really do research, and then they just think that hey, buddy's making money, so I think I can. And no, it's a whole lot of work, right? It's a whole lot of things that you really got to understand, right? So, but how about you, Tagget?
With me, it was pretty much kind of like on-the-job training because with my ex-boss, Deb, her name is Deborah, with her, I was the project manager over the final cleaning. So I used that pretty much and learned much as I can from her. But any question I had, I would always talk to her. Even now, I still give her a call, and if any question I have, I talk to her. And also, H.J. Russell, I got a friend that's a PM over there, H.J. Russell, and he helped me out a lot, too, gave me a lot of information. I sat down with a couple general contractors, just had a couple conversations with them just about how to go about with contracts and things of that nature, and they gave me a lot of information. So I took all that, and when I got over to Atlanta, I just put everything together. Took my time, put everything together.
This was up. So basically, before y'all started a business, I mean, y'all were learning, getting the experience,
Correct.
Whether, it was working through, I guess you could say she's a mentor of yours now.
Correct,
you
most
still
definitely.
reach out to her. And then, you have a lot of experience, working for a GC. Did you work for a subcontractor?
No,
just
so
GC?
So what I did is after I graduated Georgia Tech, I went to work for Turner Construction. So I was an engineer, and I was an estimator and engineer for them. So my dad had me working for him for free since I was a kid, right? Obviously, he paid me pennies, right? So it was like a paid internship, but not little pays, like paid me in food and and soda. But the point is what he did was my dad recognized that he'd rather me learn how to do the things in the office versus in the field after a certain time. So even though I started as a laborer and I still had to do the labor stuff, he gave me like an AutoCAD disc and he was like, yo, learn this. I was like, what? He said, learn it. I said, okay, fine. And then he told me like, you need to learn how to do estimates and spreadsheets and takeoffs. So I was doing those in high school. So I would, get set drawings, and then I had to, with the AutoCAD piece, I had to create shop drawings. And then, we were doing, there's a company he had that did structurally insulated panels. So it was like a SIPS panel type of modular building type deal. So I had to do the AutoCAD, like you had to do it. So I just learned how to do it just by force, by force or whatever. So that's kind of how I got into that mix early.
So yeah, I mean, so the thing is, like, let's say you're listening, you're trying to start a business in construction, right? It seems like it pays for you to work in that work for a business that you're trying to own one day, whether it's flooring, you work for a subcontractor, right? Or better yet, you could even work for a GC because, general contractors, we manage all scopes of work and you get, experience with different things. One thing that I used to do, like when I was in more the operations role here, is that when I was on the project, if there's certain things I wanted to know more, go see the foreman, go see the superintendent, whether it's flooring or drywall, and spend time with them, ask those questions. So either way, there's definitely a lot of ways that you could learn, right? Whether it's, YouTube or actually getting that hands-on experience by working for a company in the business that you're trying to one day own. So I want to talk about, go back to the fact that, we all have different experiences, how we came into construction, right? And I was reading some stats about, demographics in construction, right? And so the stats are for like Black people that make up the construction industry as far as workers. I think we make up maybe, I want to say about 10%, right? As far as like ownership with firm like businesses. And then as far as the equity portion, like obviously construction industry makes billions and billions of dollars, right? So we only contribute to about, I believe, 1% of that. So, obviously there's a big disparity.
Is it one? I thought it was less than that.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're rounding up to 1%, but it was like 1%.
Right.
Okay.
So obviously, and Sierra can share this because I think we were talking about it, how, when we were in our program, we didn't see too many Black people in the construction management program, right? So obviously there's not too many of us in the construction industry, but there's a lot of opportunities, and there's just a vast amount of opportunities, So my question is, what do you all think is our responsibility to bringing up the next generation of construction workers as far as, Black individuals? Because, if you look at history, right, Black people invented, created a lot of different things, that today has impacted, who this country is today, right? So how do we continue that legacy, right? How do we recruit? How do we get the awareness out to more Black people to get into the industry, right? And then become owners of different businesses in the industry so that we could have more of a contribution in that revenue.
Okay. I would say at first, if you're talking about reaching out to them as far as getting them into the industry, you would have to do that I'd say like in high school to get them interested in the industry. After that point, it's really them actually wanting to actually get into the industry themselves. And as they say, each one teach one. So from that point, just show them the way that you think it's possible for them to get into the industry. Just like for me, I would tell them exactly what to do. I would share my contacts with them. I would set up meetings with them and my contacts and help them get into the industry. But first, I gotta first validate them to make sure they're this is what they really want to do. Kind of like a situation where you introduced me to this one guy. I had a meeting with him. and I was asking him questions about what he wanted to do, and then I gave him some tasks, things to do before he come back to me. See, that's gonna tell me if he really wanted to get into this industry or not.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard from him since.
Yeah,
So
exactly. And that's what I'm saying. You gotta, people just think that it's just easy to get into the industry and they don't really do their research on how to get in the best way. So, but how about you, Channing?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that, I guess it depends upon what area or what lane you want to get in, because when I look at my background, it's kind of all over the place as it relates to construction. I think that it's smart for those who want to get into construction, depending upon where they are in their career. I would go innovation and technology first, right? I would get really good systems. I mean, we recognized obviously a long time ago that construction is like one of the oldest industries in the world and one of the ones that's the most difficult to change, especially in America, right? Because I mean, I've done some things internationally, but the stuff that goes, the building construction in America over the past 100 years, we haven't been trailblazers. We just haven't. You know what I'm saying? So the standard of building is like in France or in China for modular building, or maybe in Italy, and they really, I'm in Germany. So there's that mindset is difficult to change, and that probably is going to be the biggest hurdle. So I think that the students now are more into innovation and what's next, automation, right? Like with my son, he doesn't want to learn about construction, but he'll understand Roblox, right? Is it Roblox?
Roblox.
There you go. Exactly. I don't know. You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So he understands, different. He understands that that's a system. When I was working at, I think it was maybe a couple years ago, I was helping one of the companies I was working for put together systems to help streamline operations and also manage profitability, right? When Procore first started, right, I was like one of the guinea pigs on, okay, well, figure out how to use this and then figure out how to make it better. So to me, I think that in the future of construction has more to do with the systems that are in place, and then whatever technology we're getting into, how to use those technologies to then make those systems more efficient. Because construction companies want to make more money, insurance companies are charging more, and subcontractors, again, are going to start getting squeezed because their jobs may be getting taken away at some point in the future because of all of the different, technologies that are coming out and stuff like that. So I would go the technology route and just mentorships for sure.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't mean to cut you off. But I like your point, Tagget, about starting in high school. And I would even say starting in middle school. Because like I said, I didn't know growing up construction management was an option. I just knew architecture, and that's like a big thing, right? So, really growing up, I didn't really hear about construction management. A lot of people don't know about that, especially Black people, unless you have somebody in your family that's doing it, right? So I believe like getting involved and, going back to middle schools, high schools, just doing presentations, just showing that, hey, we are in this industry, it's an interesting industry. There's so many things you can do in construction, right? You can work for a GC, you can work for a trade, you can work in VDC, like we have a VDC department. So it's just so many opportunities. So I believe like starting while they're young and getting them interested is the way to go. I
would say middle school to that point is probably the best point. And we actually brought that up at a meeting over there at Tech because, Tech wants to recruit high schoolers. But here's the thing. If you're in high school and you're recruiting from Tech, it's already too late. Like if you're looking for diversity, it's too late to try to, because for them to even look at you, you've already got to be in a certain class. So which means that you'd have to be amazing in high school, which means that, you probably got groomed since middle school. So to your point, middle school is definitely, I agree with you. I remember seeing a presentation when I was in middle school that definitely helped me understand things, because that's when your brain starts to think about the future a little bit, to your point. So yeah, I agree with that.
So I would even argue elementary, and here's why. Because one thing that Juneau has been doing recently, we've been going out to elementary schools and actually doing activities with them. Like we've done concrete activities, and I'm telling you, you get blown away by the questions that they ask, right? And I even shout out to Construction Ready. They have a really good K-12 program. And about 3 weeks ago, we went to an elementary school in, I think, Marietta. And these kids, I mean, they were using tools that I haven't even touched yet. You know, they were going at it, you know, making things. And I think we really have to grab them early, right? Because to your point, construction is not the most attractive industry, right? So you have other industries that are more attractive, like technology, right? IT, that are already influencing them, you know. And so we got to really get, you know, very engaged, you know, at an early age. So I think, you know, this starts from elementary school. And then when, you know, I was part of the 100 Black Men, and we used to have a phrase called what they see is what they be, right? What they see is what they will be. And growing up, I mean, yeah, I never really saw Black people in construction, so I didn't really even know that, you know, that's something that we could get into, you know what I'm saying? So, but, you know, the responsibility, at least for me, is that, okay, I make sure that I go and represent the Construction Ready as a Black individual, right? So I'm taking advantage of the career days, you know, that are at elementary school or, you know, middle school, high school. I'm definitely motivating a lot of our project teams to do outreach events, you know, at a local elementary and middle school. And I definitely want a diverse team, right? Whether it's Black, white, you know, whatever race, you know, men, women, you want as diverse as possible, right? So that everyone knows that, okay, I have a possibility in this industry. I have a chance in this industry, right?
And listen, the more diverse you are, the easier it is to handle problems because you never get the same problem twice. You're always going to get something different. And if you can't communicate with everybody, you're going to have a problem.
Oh, yeah.
So I love that point.
Oh, yeah. Diversity is key. And again, everyone thinks different, you know? So when you have a very diverse team, you get different ways of thoughts that help, you know, solve solutions. So definitely. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Any other thoughts on, you know, I mean, so do y'all think that we have a responsibility to definitely recruit or inspire, influence? Because, again, I mean, I'm passionate about this industry, honestly, you know, and I want more people that look like us to be a part of this industry because there's a lot of opportunities. And so you were making a point about the technology aspect, but at the end of the day, when it comes to the actual skills, that's where we're lacking in, right, in the industry, right? And I don't foresee in any time because, like you said, technology in the construction, we're slow to change. So it seems like we're always going to need, at least for the near future, need people to actually do the work. And so that's where the issue is not filling that gap of skills trade, is that people want to go to more technology. They want to be able to work from home, you know. So I think that's where we need to, you know, influence others.
So why we don't have that anymore? I remember, like I said, back in the days when I grew up, you saw us on the construction site, but mostly we were the bricklayers, the concrete. But you don't see that at all no more. Like I said, most of the time I hardly see any Blacks on a construction site that I be on.
You know what? I've been to a couple. I did a roofing installation training in Arizona, right? And you know, the area in Arizona that I was at, it was a kind of, and mind you, roofers are like, I would compare the culture of roofing to rebar guys, right? So I mean, it's very like hard nosed type of individuals, and you know, work release programs is one of the things that I tend to lean towards to work with because you know you want to help people in general, but especially people that get out of prison. Because I mean, you think we got it rough. Imagine having a record. I mean, it's like you could forget about it. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, but as far as the next generation, I mean, because those are two things that I look at when I think about the next generation in construction, right? You got the people who are growing up on their first tier. Then you got the people who maybe made a mistake and they're looking to get reintroduced to some type of work to the workforce. Okay. So that would be those two lanes. But I'm saying, introduce them to both, right? Try to get good at something know how to do something, right? Because I mean, you can't really tell somebody how to manage something that they never done it. I mean, you try, or try to figure out a system to use if they've never actually done it. So to that point, I think it probably is smarter, to your point, to actually get the younger generation, even in elementary school, used to using their hands to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's easier probably to figure out they like it or not.
Yeah.
And then
Correct.
to your point, they get good at it and they're like, oh, I do want to do this.
Correct.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, while also leaning into technology, just to making sure that, you know, you're the next intern that you guys hire here, I mean, he'll run circles around you on technology.
Yeah.
Guarantee it.
Yeah,
You can be
of
as good as you
course.
want to. No, circles. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I said, why are you doing it that way when you can do it this way?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, you know, whatever. So that's what I would kind of like point to your point.
You guys bring up a great point. You're right. You know, like me being on the construction site, I don't see a lot of blacks, and I'm like, that's kind of strange. But I also think about, like, you know, back in the day, like, sometimes their only option was to work in the trades, right? And to actually do the labor. Like I told you guys about my grandfather, that was his only option, was to be a brick mason, to actually do the labor. So now I feel like this newer generation, we have access to a lot more opportunities when it comes to education. And of course, you bypass that step of actually having to get out there and do the hard manual labor. You just jump into more of the management role. So yeah, I didn't realize that, but that, you know, that
Right.
thinking about it, I think that's why you don't really see that anymore as often.
But
But
even
I
on
do
your
think
side, I don't see it. Even on the management side, I don't see it.
that is true. I was gonna say, like, you know, coming up at Kennesaw, like in my classes, I didn't see anybody that looked like me. And I know when you guys went to school, it was probably less people who look like you. And you know, you talk about the stats of blacks in this industry. I'm like, it's even less for black women in this industry. So that's why I really like to kind of be a mentor to younger girls that are coming up in this industry, and just give them advice and, you know, opportunities, and just open their eyes to things that they won't really necessarily learn or get told in school, because nobody's gonna tell you these things, right? Because yeah, so
Oh, that's the key.
yeah.
Because if you got an example early, then the chances that you follow that, because you think about it, our heroes, right? If you look at construction, if you just look at construction, just our industry, who do we really have to look forward to is, oh man, I want to be like him. That's one company. And this is supposed to be the black mecca of the United States of America. You have so many friends that went to school with me in Morehouse, or when I go to New York or other states, they're like, oh my God, you live in Atlanta? All the black people are rich. It's the black Wakanda. Everybody just gold streets. It's just black people.
Black
millionaires.
Hollywood, black
Hollywood.
everything.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, really? Is that
Yeah.
what you think it is?
That's
like,
what
yeah,
they think.
it ain't like Milwaukee.
That's
Oh,
what they
okay.
think.
But again, if you compare it to Chicago, Milwaukee, Cleveland, you know, Albuquerque, you know, there's other black communities, all these other places. Atlanta is special. But to that point, we got more young people who are interested in things that they see on television, right? So that what YouTuber is like a construction YouTuber that's super popular? I don't know any.
Yeah.
You'd be the first podcaster that blows up out of construction that's black, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know any.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's a lane that needs to be filled. But
Right.
guess what? It's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, yeah, that's huge, man. And I think another responsibility, or someone that should share the responsibility, is these organizations that we're part of too, like, you know, NAMAC, NAWIC. I know NAWIC, like probably 2 weeks ago, that you all did the.
So
what was it
2
called?
weeks ago we did Black Kids, like
Black Kids.
kind of similar to you with Construction Ready.
Yeah.
We had it was about 180 elementary schoolers come in, and basically we had a competition. It's called Black Kids, so they get a set of Legos and there's some other materials in the bag, and they just really use their creative minds to build whatever they want, right? So you'd be surprised the things these kids built. Like one of my kids, he built like a cruise ship, but like it had the exterior. So the exterior, he used like foil as his kind of shell and the structure of it, and then the inside he used the Legos to be like the kind of I guess you can say different decks for the cruise ship. But it was like crazy. I'm like, I never would have thought to build that when I was in elementary school. So
They're
it's like
creative.
you give these kids these tools. It's crazy what their minds can like come up with.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, you know, NAMAC and, you know, other minority, organizations. I think they may really focus on like just growing and scaling up minority and black businesses, right? But I don't know if they're thinking about a future as well too, because I mean, again, NAMAC does a lot of great events, and Juneau, we've been members of NAMAC for I think this is the second year now, are really engaged and we're liking what we're seeing. But as far as like just future, I mean, yeah, you're trying to scale up, but who are you like hiring, right? So you gotta start planting those seeds so that you could scale your business up, right? Because you want to have a diverse team, right? And obviously, we're at a disadvantage, so you want to help the disadvantaged folks and then have a diverse team as well too. But it starts from what are you doing to invest in your next generation. If you really want to build your company up, right, you want to know how you're going to build your company up, in the future.
I think for me, it's hard for my company to actually to bring in our people because our people don't want to work in my industry.
Yeah, no, that's
On
like
a management level,
said.
something like that, yes. But as far as on the actual ground level operations, day-to-day operations, nah.
See, but and yes, obviously that's what we see, right? But again, in the mentality of okay, well, if I work, I could one day own a business, right? And if I understand it, right, but I got to be willing to sacrifice, and whether it's pride, I don't know what it is, but sacrifice some time to put into understanding how that business works, right? And then I could have my own. But I think that there's a mindset that okay, I see where I want to be. How do I get to that point immediately? I mean, it takes a lot of work. We look at other people. I mean, that's why I strongly hate social media, because like you just see people and then you're like, oh, I want to be like him, and then thinking that him or her did it like overnight, but they worked their way up, and they did a lot of things before they got to where they were. So sometimes you gotta sacrifice your pride, learn how to do things, and then then you'll become successful as far as ownership wise.
But I mean, I get that too, and you're right. Like the younger generation, I would say even my generation, I'm like a Gen X. Like we want that instant like gratification, like that instant success, right? We don't think about the steps that come with it, because like I'm thinking I was born, I didn't really have to work for anything, you know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't like my dad's generation where it's like he had to work hard. My granddad's generation, my grandma's generation, like you know what I'm saying, it's just different. Like society is just changing. You think like kids that are born nowadays, like technology is just so advanced, like kids are 3-4 with a iPad. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it's not the same anymore. Or just even you think about playing outside, or like you said, using your hands for stuff. Like they'd rather just pick up an iPad or a phone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Rather than go outside and actually play or build something with their hands. It's like I can build something on Roblox or So it's, I think that's one of the biggest issues too. Technology is a blessing, but also a curse.
But it's the work less and make more mindset, which
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't want to work less, and who doesn't want to make more? But
That's true.
I mean, is that ideal? And I just think that people run away from hard work.
All right. Kind of piggyback what you were saying, for as like for me, even though I was a project manager over her final cleaning, I actually went out there and worked with the crew because I wanted to know every aspect of the cleaning process, the rough, the final, and the puff. So, and also what products actually clean better. So what gets the stains out, what gets the rust out. So I actually went out there and worked with them. I still go out there with my crew sometimes and work with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how you're going to manage,
Correct.
if you don't know exactly how to do your business. And so we're going to wrap up here, but before we do, there's probably like two more questions that I'd like to ask. So one is, what do you think companies such as Juneau can do to better make the industry more diverse in terms of equity?
As far as equity?
Yeah, as far as, equity as it relates to black businesses?
I mean, you know, I think that any company that has goals is, and actually, if you don't, it's like this. If someone has to force you to have a goal, then you're less likely, in my opinion, to really embrace the reason behind it. Right? If you have this goal, no matter what, you know, it's just like being in school and winning a race. Like if your dad wants you to win the race versus you wanting, and you yourself, you want to win. I know what that's like to have parents wanting you to have goals, but then you got the goal yourself. And it's different then. Because if it's your goal, then you take ownership over it, and you probably going to hit it. But if somebody wants you to do something like, no, I want my baby to be, you know, a lawyer and doctor. I know a couple of my friends, they're from Nigeria, and a couple of my other buddies like, yeah, man, you got to be a doctor, a lawyer. You know? It's like, you ain't this, you nothing.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's a hard life to be in that situation, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, man, that's what it was, and they wasn't playing about it.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
you had to make a decision.
Yeah.
But that was their goals, and a lot of them end up doing something else. Because guess what? It wasn't their goals. So if a construction company has goals, okay, well, if they're your goals, then let's make them your goals and don't really care about who's asking you to make a goal. That'd be the first thing. The second thing I would say is, if you're really interested in the E part, the equity part, is you got to have a lot of patience, and you got to create the opportunity for long-term strategic relationships and partnerships. That means that if we're talking about details, that means sitting down with black contractors on a quarterly basis, on one-on-one, and go through their finances. Let's talk about budgeting. Let's talk about your backlog, you know, and let's talk about, hey, man, well, look, here's a consultant that is going to be pro bono. They're going to come in. They're going to help you work out some things that we kind of see you guys could kind of need some help here, right? Because as a business owner, everybody has different needs, right? Mine may be sales. Maybe I can't talk. You know, I just know how to do the work. Well, I might need some sales coaching or whatever, you know? I mean, if you're interested in the business growing, you got to be interested in the person understanding how to get out of the business themselves. Because I don't have a business if I'm actually doing the work. Neither do you. None of us do.
Yeah.
Because if we got to do the work,
Right. We are the business.
then we are the business. Then if we're the business and something happens to us, so does the business. The business goes too.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have a situation where it's like Les and Nancy, or I guess, you know, I'm not sure if they're at the, you know, what the structure is here, but if they just go do something else, that the company just go. You want to have something like, nah, man, we got an engine, and it doesn't matter who's running the show at the top. The culture takes over. So I think that the nuggets that they have, and they've shared a lot of these things that you guys already know, the things that they're doing already, you know. So I would just say along those lines.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I like what you said, long term, right? Because, you know, when you do have those client-driven goal projects, it's like just, I appreciate you for helping us in this project. All right, we'll see y'all
Wham, bam,
later.
thank you, ma'am.
Yep. So it is important to have the internal goals, and you know, and that's why one thing I love about Juneau is that, you know, we're being very intentional about, you know, trying to have these internal goals, because most of our work is private, right? So we don't do a lot of government projects where
Correct.
there is you know, a certain amount of percentage as it relates to minority disadvantaged businesses. So, and then to even add on like long term, right? So we're wanting to grow the company as we grow, right? So what does that mean is, okay, well, not only providing opportunities, but providing more education, right? Because again, how you're successful is, you know, how you run your business as well too, right? So we could give you opportunities all day long, but if you don't know how to run your business, you're not going to be successful. So, so one thing that we're rolling out this year is educational series called Cultivate, right? Because we're trying to cultivate, you know, companies to grow. So we're going to be having an educational series talking about different things in, you know, particular markets. This year we're going to focus on multifamily and student housing, because that's pretty much our bread and butter now, you know, and it's, you know, a little bit different than other markets, right? So I'm excited to start it off this year. And like you said, you know, we really want to grow long-term relationships. How do we improve? Because again, if you're on a project, you're successful, we're successful, right?
Well, listen, one last point when it comes to that, we're talking about real things that a company can do.
Yeah.
So you find out the companies that specialize in whatever type, right? And even if they don't, if it makes sense, you bring them in early. and you don't bring them in there early with the discussion of, hey, it's yours, because then you're gonna create friction like that, right? You bring them in early to say, hey, here's a real opportunity. Let's set up these bi-monthly meetings, because this is a design build. It's gonna be a year process of you looking at these plans, but is your company at the position where they can add value because of your relationships with the manufacturers, right? If you brought in us and you say, hey man, we got this, massive units, massive project units that we got going on in Athens for UGA. It's this is the design, the schematic, or maybe the schematic design. It's not even DDs. What roofing system would you specialize in? Why? What if you do? What would you? Help me understand why it makes sense. And we'll kick it to the architect. We'll kick it around the bucket if you guys have already got the agreement in place. If there's value that can be added there, it's like, okay, well that's intentionality. That means we're talking early. And then what you do is you set up these meetings, and maybe every 2 to 3 months, where it's like, okay, well, how can we work on getting the best price, Channing? Well, here's some other ideas. Well, will they do this? Will they do that? A lot of the times what happens is we get the phone calls after the fact. And it's like, well, this is what we got. Well, that's what's in the specs. All right, well, what about these other options? Well, the specs don't line up with the drawings. This note doesn't line up with the drawings. You guys have been done this long enough so that there's always going to be that challenge with architects. So again, if you bring in guys early and actually have that, okay, this is an investment. We may not, it may go 2 years, but the idea is once we get to the end of the road, you'll be there so that we can do another one together, because that helps us grow, and then it helps us grow trust in each other.
Yeah. No, that's a good
Instead
point.
of doing like a class, because the class is great.
Yeah.
I love these classes.
Yeah.
I love spending, but y'all's contracts, Gio Bain's contracts, J.E. Dunn's contracts, H.J. Russell's contracts, all the contracts are set up for us to fail. They're not set up for us to win if there's a dispute, if there's a problem. So, contract and knowing the risk and the insurance, listen, we need it. That's good information. Yeah. But running a business and being successful has a lot to do with, again, if that project comes up, well, let me bring your superintendent down here. Let's talk to him. Let's get his ideas. How would he approach this problem? Those are the type of investment, an hour or two at a time over a year, maybe 20 hours, that can add major value to a subcontractor and potentially grow the relationship to where we can do business together.
No, man, that's a good point. And it's funny that you said that, because sometimes I do get like feedback on some minority, specifically more smaller companies on, okay, well, whether we bring them on DD round or bring them GEP, because again, when you're saying rounds, you're talking about time that you have to, invest, right? So sometimes we have to say, okay, well, maybe it doesn't make sense to go out to a lot of subs for this one, especially the small businesses, because we know that, they have some other things that they got to do as far as the project. They only could do so much, right? But obviously, if it makes sense to bring, subs very early on, and, like we're being more intentional about, talking through things, the VE items, like, I think there's definitely opportunities in that. So
another thing real quick before you go is that a lot of the times as a black contractor, and obviously us doing this, we can talk about this for years, but you're going to have different teams working with the actual project until it's complete. And there's been a lot of times, even in working as a GC, when the owners will be like, oh man, yeah, this guy X, Y, and Z. But as soon as they throw the football to their operations, to the pre-con like, yeah, all right, they're okay. And they throw it to buy's like, who? I'm using my buddy, you know what I'm saying? And then before you get to the project manager, I'm using my buddy. I've done 8 projects with my buddy already, and guess what? All of them went perfect. Why would I try out, Jamiroquai construction? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would I take that risk? And then it's like, guess what? Who signs the contracts? I do. Guess who gets it? I do. And then before you know it, project goes like, hey man, whatever happened to Jamiroquai construction? Oh man, I don't know, man. They were too high. Everybody moves on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those are the kind of things that also hold us back. And that's just not any one construction company.
Right.
That's all of them, because none of them are cradle to grave.
Yeah.
All of them, you're passing the football
Yeah.
to different people. So
Yeah.
having someone like you though,
Yeah.
that's the key. is when you got people
Have
like
someone consistently throughout the process.
You would be the person that says, yo, hey, you guys getting ready to do this. Well, did you scope everybody down really well?
Yeah.
So how'd the numbers shake out? Well, it was really close. Well, how close was it?
Yeah.
What questions to ask. And then you say,
yeah.
oh, okay. Well, why didn't you give, what's the name a shot? Well, Jamiroquai, it would take too long to respond to emails or stuff like that. Right. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Trust me, I understand.
Sound familiar, doesn't it? So I got a question for you for Juneau. What do Juneau see that as far as black subcontractors or even general contractors should be working on to help them with Juneau or with any GC? What do y'all see us lacking in?
I mean, I don't know if we could just categorize, black business, say, oh, this is what, because everyone is at a different level, right?
Show up on time.
You said what?
Show up on time. Y'all always late. We can joke in here, right?
Yeah, we can joke, man.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the first thing. I'm just kidding. But I mean, honestly, I've been just doing this position for probably about a year and a half. So one thing that I'm being more intentional about is to getting more feedback, right? So as minority trades and disadvantaged trades, get those opportunities, checking in on them, not only with the team, but with that business well too, because they're going to have, their experiences, their perspective on what can be better. And then the team, our project team is going to have their, takeaways and perspective on what that company can improve. And then hopefully, like midpoint and the end of the project, I'm sitting down going through, hey, this is the ways that you can improve. This is what we see. Because at the end of the day, like I said, the intentionality is to cultivate and grow and have a long-term business, right? Partnership, right? So we want to make sure that you all are doing things better. But I think the biggest thing just in general is quality. Like, we're big on safety, but we're also big on quality. Like, we feel like, yes, we have a management team there, but somebody in your company should be checking the work that your crew is doing, right? And that's where, a lot of our field team have issues, because yes, I mean, there's a mindset that, okay, so-and-so did this project, before they were great. So why should I bring somebody else? Because I like the fact that they have good quality, So I think that's a big thing, quality, making sure that you have somebody or you are going through and actually doing what you say you're doing, not just picking up the phone and say, hey, no, we did this, and then you find out that your crew didn't do it, and because you didn't put your eyes on it, or you don't have somebody that is competent enough to tell you what is actually going on. So I think that's just in general something that we try to focus on, and that's why we ask some questions in the scope meeting, like what is your staffing like? Because based off of those questions and those answers, we get a good feel whether your project or staff right to where we may not have big issues when it comes to quality, So I think that's just one big thing. Yeah, good question. Anything else? Want to add something on? So as we wrap up, because it's it's about that time.
I kind of want to ask the last question.
Yeah, go ahead and ask the last question.
Up. Just in general, I just love hearing everybody's different perspectives. What's some advice that you would give like your younger self about knowing everything now about this industry, or just younger Black people in general that are just starting off in this industry or that have interests, right?
I'm gonna let you start on that one. Think on that one. Gotta think on that one.
I would say take big risk early. I would just fail big. Why not? If you're in the 20s, go for it. You don't have children. I mean, you don't really have a bunch of houses. If you're just starting out in life in general, just go for it, right? And the information, what I would probably tell myself, man, that it gets better.
I like how you said take risks, fail big, but I personally don't believe in failures. I believe there's no such thing as failures, right? I believe there's such things as, you know, you learning from that, you know, opportunity or whatever you took, but I don't think it's a failure,
Well,
right?
if you learn, though. If you don't learn, then it's a failure.
That's true, but
if you do
most
learn it,
people,
yes.
you know, you should learn from that opportunity, and that should make you grow as an individual. So I don't look at anything as failures, but I think that's
So
great
even though
advice.
failure, to your point, is kind of like a bad word,
Yeah.
I'm from the mindset of embrace uncertainty. Embrace uncertainty. Embrace, because in construction, the next perfect project will be the first perfect project. And one of the challenges that we have as black contractors is we're on a crazy microscope. Something happens on our project, everyone's going to hear about it. It's like, oh, you hear about those freaking Evolve guys? They screwed up. And that's like, oh, here goes another black company. I can't trust them again. I mean, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a black establishment and complained. And like, oh, is it black?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go again. That's unfortunately the energy that we give each other. We're not really patient with each other. We don't really pull people to the side like, yo, man, instead of this going out into the public, let's try to see if we can correct this here now. I've always taught to manage your house in the house. Don't manage your house outside of the house, because now you got to deal with everybody's questions. You get things situated on the job site. First off, everyone knows you know how to manage your job site. But when things get out, it's like, wow. Having people that understand that if it is your first rodeo-ish, it's patience. And walking through things and making sure that you're dealing with somebody that's going to do what they say they're going to do. Because I know you can deal with a contractor that does so-so work, but what you can't deal with is somebody that's not going to do at bare minimum what they say they're going to do. Like if you tell me to paint a wall and not paint it, it's like, all right, he showed up on time and he painted the wall. It ain't the best painted wall, but at least he did that. Not the guy that's like doesn't show up or that does it, paints it the wrong color. You know what I'm saying? So that would be my direct advice for somebody is to try big things early. Do not be scared to fail, right? And recognize that the same kind of patience that you are going to be that's going to be required for a contractor to deal with you, you're going to have to exhibit that same type of patience with new people that come under you.
Okay, me, I would say to my younger self, any young people that's getting into the industry, first thing is on a personal level, make sure you have good credit score.
There you go.
Because finance
Facts.
is hard to come by when you're a minority contractor.
Amen.
And your credit score is what's going to differentiate that for you. Because like I said, no lenders are going to lend you money with a bad credit score or a decent credit score. So at least 680, 700 or better. The next thing I would say is that never take no for an answer. And always know that, this one thing I keep with myself, that if you don't actually win that bid on that job, they ain't the only contractor in the room, period. There's more contractors out there. And even that particular contractor doesn't actually award you the contract on that contract, then there's other contracts that they're going to have coming up. You still bid on them. So, you know, that's going to be some that you're going to win, some you're going to lose. But as long as you keep on bidding on the projects, you're going to win some.
Persistency.
Yeah, persistency,
Great
most
advice.
definitely.
Yeah.
Major.
Yeah.
Great advice. The credit score, that's a real thing.
Most definitely.
That's a good one. I didn't even think
real
about
thing.
that, but I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotta have some capital, you know, when you're starting out a business, right? So that's definitely important. But again, fellas, I appreciate you all for again accepting the invite to discuss on our session, building legacy, Black excellence in construction. Thank you for the audience for listening or watching this podcast, and again, until next time.
Peace.
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 That's a wrap.